Welcome to the Nordic Venture Show, your speed date with the coolest ventures, brightest founders, and exciting things happening in the Nordics. In this episode, our venture date is with Syre, textile-to-textile recycling for a circular future.
Welcome to the deep dive. You're here because, well, you want to get a real handle on important topics, quickly but thoroughly, without feeling like you're drinking from a fire hose.
Exactly.
Today, we're zeroing in on Syre. They're a company with a pretty bold ambition in the world of textiles.
Yeah, and what's really compelling about Syre, I think, is that they're tackling a truly significant problem head on. You know, the massive environmental footprint of how we make and, well, get rid of textiles.
Right.
We were looking at their website, their about home and news pages, and honestly, they lay out a pretty ambitious vision.
Absolutely. And the numbers, they really paint a stark picture. The textile industry, it's responsible for up to 10% of global CO2 equivalent emissions.
10%, that's huge.
It's a significant chunk of the world's pollution. And here's a stat that it blows my mind. Less than 1% of the textile fiber market currently comes from recycled textiles.
Less than 1%. It's shocking, really.
So overwhelmingly, when our clothes, reach the end of their life, they either burned or buried. That's the challenge Syre is stepping up to address.
Precisely, yeah.
Yeah.
Their core mission is to decarbonize and dewaste the textile sector.
Yeah.
They're strategically starting with polyester.
Okay.
Their vision is basically a future where recycling textiles back into textiles.
Yeah.
Is just a standard part of how society operates.
Just normal infrastructure.
Right. Where discarded fabrics are reborn into new high-quality items. Their idea, they encapsulate it as every textile fiber sees a new day. That really speaks to a truly circular approach.
It's a powerful image. Every textile fiber sees a new day. And their mission then is to make this happen through what they call true textile-to-textile recycling.
Yeah.
At hyperscale.
Hyperscale, yeah. That's the key term.
Okay, let's dig deeper into this. Why the specific focus on polyester? It seems like a very, very deliberate choice.
Oh, it is, definitely. Polyester is it's the dominant force in the textile world. Yeah. We're talking about 71 million tons produced annually. And it's not slowing down. Its growth is continuing.
And it's everywhere, isn't it?
It's in everything around us. The clothes we wear, car interiors, home furnishings, you name it. But here's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, concerning. Polyester production is also the single largest CO2 equivalent emitter within the textile industry. It contributes up to 40% of that overall impact we mentioned earlier.
40% just from polyester.
Up to 40%. Yeah. That really frames the scale of the problem they're trying to solve.
No kidding. So by focusing on polyester, they're basically going after the biggest lever for change they can find.
Exactly. And they also point out, the way we currently recycle polyester, often it's from plastic bottles into fiber.
Right, bottle to fiber.
Which, okay, it's better than landfilling, definitely, but it isn't a fully closed loop within the textile system itself, is it?
Okay. I see the distinction.
Exactly. Bottle to fiber recycling has its place, its benefits, but Syre's aim is different. They want to create a truly circular system within the textile industry, taking old polyester clothes, old polyester materials, and transforming them back into new polyester fibers. Again and again.
So it stays textiles.
It stays textiles. It avoids those downcycling issues and keeps valuable resources circulating within the textile economy.
Right. Okay. So they're not just aiming to recycle. They're aiming to create this new self-sustaining loop. Okay. Now let's talk about this hyperscale plan. It sounds incredibly ambitious.
It really does.
I mean, they were founded relatively recently, right?
Yeah.
2023. And by 2024, they'd already announced their first blueprint recycling plant in North Carolina, USA. That's moving at lightning speed.
It is. It's very fast. And their projected timeline, it has this blueprint plant operational with commercial sales starting in 2026.
2026, okay.
And it's also worth noting, they're integrating something called Premier technology in this North Carolina facility. That seems to be a key part of their process.
Premier, got it.
Then just a year later, 2027, they plan to begin construction on their first gigascale plant.
Gigascale, okay. Bigger than blueprint.
Much bigger. With a target production capacity of, that's this, 150 to 250,000 metric tons of circular polyester annually.
Wow. That's a lot of polyester.
It is. And they've even identified potential locations for this massive facility. Vietnam and Iberia, Spain, and Portugal area.
Okay, so they're already thinking globally. That's a massive leap in scale from the blueprint plant.
Huge leap. And their ultimate vision is even larger. They're talking multiple plants across the globe by 2032.
2032.
Producing a staggering 3 million metric tons of circular polyester each year.
3 million tons.
3 million. And they estimate this could prevent over 15 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions.
Okay, put that into perspective for us. What does 15 million tons of CO2e look like?
Well, they say it's comparable to taking over 3 million gasoline-powered cars off the road every year.
3 million cars.
Or, think about it this way, the carbon footprint of producing maybe 16 billion T-shirts.
Billion. With a B. Wow. Okay, that truly illustrates what they mean by hyperscale.
It really does. They're not just envisioning, a few niche recycling facilities. They're aiming to fundamentally reshape the infrastructure of the global textile industry.
And a crucial part of this surely is the quality of the end product.
Absolutely critical. And they emphasize this. They say the circular polyester produced through their textile-to-textile recycling will have a quality comparable to brand new virgin polyester.
Which is vital, right? If the recycled material isn't as good, it's a much harder sell for brands, for consumers.
Exactly. It needs to perform the same. And they're claiming a significant environmental advantage, too. Up to 85% less CO2 equivalent emissions compared to making new polyester from oil.
85% reduction.
Up to 85%. If they can consistently achieve that at scale, well, it could be a real game changer in reducing the industry's impact.
A massive game changer.
It certainly could. Now, looking at some of their recent news, some milestones, they actually just celebrated their first anniversary in March of this year, 2025.
Only 1 year old, publicly anyway.
Seems so. And it's quite remarkable what they've apparently accomplished in that short time. From their public launch, securing significant early investments.
Yeah.
You've got groups like Vargas Holding and the H&M Group involved from the start.
H&M, interesting.
Yeah, and others like TPG, Rise Climate, Volvo Cars.
Yeah.
Quite a list of founding investors. And they've already integrated this premier technology into their pilot operations.
Right. The tech you mentioned for the North Carolina plant, so it sounds like maybe they spent some time developing the tech behind the scenes before the big public push in 2024.
That would make sense given the speed. And their CEO, Dennis Nobilius, he's been very clear about the need to rethink textile waste.
How so?
Well, not seeing it as something just to be discarded, but as a valuable resource. Secondary raw material that can be recycled basically infinitely.
Infinitely.
That's the goal. He's highlighted their plans, both the U.S. Blueprint plant and the potential Vietnam gigaplant, aiming to address a substantial portion. They're talking around 3% of the entire global polyester market.
3% might not sound huge, but for a single new company targeting a 71 million ton market, that's incredibly ambitious.
It is ambitious. And what's particularly interesting, I think, is their strong emphasis on collaboration across the entire textile ecosystem.
They're not trying to go it alone.
Not at all. Syre isn't presenting itself as like a standalone magic bullet. They are actively seeking partnerships with everyone involved.
Like who?
From policymakers, the people who set the rules and regulations, to the brands that actually use the materials, and the technology providers who can support the infrastructure needed for all this.
Right.
They clearly understand that creating a truly circular textile economy requires a unified effort, everyone pulling together.
That makes perfect sense. You can't achieve recycling at that kind of scale without the systems in place to collect and sort all the used textiles efficiently.
Exactly. Collection, sorting.
Yeah.
A huge challenge.
And you need major brands committing to actually buy and use the recycled materials in their products, otherwise the loop breaks.
Precisely. They specifically mention needing updated waste regulations, needing long-term purchase agreements, those volume commitments from brands, and even the development of advanced, maybe AI-powered sorting technologies.
AI sorting, interesting.
Yeah, to handle the complexity. It's a complex web, really, of interconnected elements that all need to evolve together.
It really sounds like it. The tech, the logistics, the policy, the market demand.
Absolutely. And, even their name, Syre, apparently has a deliberate meaning.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Swedish word for oxygen, symbolizing renewal, a fresh start, that kind of thing.
Okay, that fits.
But it's also apparently a combination of sy, which means to stitch in Swedish, and re, meaning again.
Yeah.
So stitching again and again. It perfectly captures their core concept of continuous recycling within textiles.
Stitch again. That's actually really clever. Nice detail. It underscores their core mission in a memorable way.
It does. And they've even put out a direct call, basically. Included a direct invitation for potential collaborators, providing their email address, partner@syre.com.
Partner@syre.com.
Okay. They're clearly serious about building these partnerships to drive what they're calling this great textile shift,
The great textile shift. I like that.
which brings us back to the core of what Syre is trying to achieve, doesn't it?
Yeah, summing it up.
They have this very ambitious vision, absolutely. But it seems supported by concrete, though, still developing, plans. Plans to tackle the huge environmental impact of textiles,
Starting with polyester.
starting smartly with polyester. Through this hyperscale textile-to-textile recycling approach, they're addressing a really critical environmental challenge with a proposed solution that, if it achieves the scale they envision,
If they pull it off.
it has the potential for a truly significant positive impact. And, crucially, they clearly recognize that achieving this is going to require widespread collaboration all across the industry.
Absolutely. So when you really step back and consider the sheer amount of polyester we produce, 71 million tons a year, and its considerable environmental consequences, it does prompt a bigger question, doesn't it?
Like what?
Like, what role do you think companies like Syre and these kinds of large-scale circular solutions might play in fundamentally changing not just the textile industry, but maybe even our broader relationship with how we consume things and what we even consider to be waste?
That's a deep question, shifting our whole perspective on materials.
Yeah. It's definitely food for thought, isn't it? As we all navigate a world that's thankfully becoming more focused on sustainability and, the responsible use of resources. Something to mull over.
Thanks for tuning in. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Music, or your favorite app, and connect with us on LinkedIn for more stories and insights.